Attention chiropractors, slayers of subluxation, unleashers of the imprisoned impulse. I am Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge, and welcome to this week's episode of the Chiropractic Research Breakdown, where each week we break down the most relevant chiropractic science and philosophy to empower you with the ammo and certainty necessary to change your community from the inside out. Diving deep into today, a study from 2009, the Journal of Manipulative and Physiological Therapeutics. Developmental delay syndromes, psychometric testing before and after chiropractic treatment of 157 children. This study looked at a case series of 157 children who were suffering with developmental delay syndromes. These included dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADHD, and learning disabilities. The authors here state, and this is from National, by the way, they state that poor muscle tone leads to postural disorders, sensory, motor, and coordination disorders, and kinesthesia. Because motor and cognitive functions often coexist, this study was undertaken to investigate whether chiropractic assessment and treatment of motor impairments in 157 children with developmental delay syndromes would have positive effects. So it's retrospective. It's looking at 157 children who entered a clinic in Switzerland between the years of 1993 to 2007. These people were under care on average somewhere between like 3 to 18 months. They assessed, using a third party, tons of cognitive functions using psychometric testing. On average, they said their initial evaluation took about an hour each. They looked at the complex figure of Ray test, which assessed for visual learning and memory, the Borel-Masony test, which assessed for auditory verbal perception, the Porteus-Maze test, which searched for motor and graphic planning, the Oriented Signs test, which assessed for visual discrimination and visuospatial memory, the auditory memory of Ray test, which assessed for immediate, mid, and long-term memory, the Piaget head test, which assessed for right versus left awareness, the rhythm production test of Standback, which assessed for audio perception, discrimination, and temporal orientation, and the facial metrosity test of Standback, fine motor coordination of facial muscles. Now, I apologize to anyone who is really familiar with those tests if I butchered any of the words, because I don't know how to pronounce all of those. Anyway, they use AK, or applied kinesiology, to evaluate and adjust, which involves a lot of muscle testing. And overall, for the untrained eye, voodoo. AK is very interesting. Love those docs, like addressing subluxation. It's interesting stuff. All right. So they assessed for motor dysfunction and muscle inhibition using manual muscle testing. And what they found is that it was actually present in all 157 children who entered the clinic. So they found, I guess this was their way of assessing for subluxation. They don't use those words, though, obviously, because it's out of National. But yeah, that's what they did to assess for whether or not they were going to adjust or manipulate or whatever else they said they were going to do. Following adjustment, they said the most common reports from parents were increased ability to concentrate, maintain focus and attention, and control muscle impulsivity. The results, the Ray memory richness tests, 82% of children improved. The Ray copy richness test, 74% of children improved. What this shows is that following chiropractic care, which they did, they looked at resolution of symptoms. So it's not like ongoing care. They had a clear end and beginning, which varied differently for every person. But after discontinuation, they sent them back for all of that hour-long testing. And so they found 82% of children improved with the Ray memory richness. Ray copy richness, 74% improved, and that indicates visual memory, spatial orientation, and organization for copying a complex figure, which is awesome. They found that 82% of children actually moved to a higher percentile on the Borel-Masony test. This indicated that auditory verbal perception and memory were improved. Other memory tests for long-term, mid-term, and immediate auditory memory tests were improved. Reading comprehension improved because of massive changes of working memory. Directed attention tests only improved in about 10 to 30% of children, depending on each of the three different tests. It was like 10, 20, and 30% of children improved. They found that the most common joint dysfunctions or dysfunctions that they found were in the upper cervical area and the cranial areas. So cranial work and upper cervical, which interestingly, what they noted was after these adjustments, they had when they corrected that subluxation, they had the highest changes, the quickest changes in sensory motor integration right afterwards. So what I actually do like about this is they're not saying that they just went ahead and manipulated the atlas or manipulated the upper cervical area or just did cranial work on every single child. They assessed to see if that was actually the area that needed to get adjusted. And when it was, they adjusted it. And it just so happened that when doing that adjustment, that is where they saw the biggest changes in sensory motor integration. This is hugely important, right? Because we can say all day that an upper cervical subluxation will affect sensory motor integration. But if you just go out there and say that, maybe not every child needs an adjustment there. We know that that's the subluxation that causes these issues, and it's the correction of this issue, the correction of this problem, the restoration of this structure that allows for the improvements. If we just say that the adjustment itself is what shows improvement, that means that we are performing a therapy. That means that if we just randomly take any child and adjust their upper cervical area, they should see improvements. Guess what? Not every child has a subluxation there. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I can't think of a good analogy off the top of my head, but I hope that that makes sense. Because if we were just go in there and say that the upper cervical change, the upper cervical adjustment itself is what made the change, then we take out all of what chiropractic care is, because we take out the entirety of the detection and correction of vertebral subluxation. So the subluxation itself is what impairs the sensory and motor integration. And when we reduce and remove that subluxation, that's why these children saw these changes. So National, you're so close. You're so close here to actually saying things that make sense principally. You just need to change a couple words, but you're a lot better than a lot of other things you've put out in this article. Granted, it's back from 2009. So this is amazing. We're seeing that 157 children presenting with developmental delay syndromes, massive percentages of them are seeing changes in all these different areas. Dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADHD, learning disabilities, attention, focus, memory, etc. Now, it's not that chiropractic, once again, is a treatment for any of these different things. However, analyzing for and correcting subluxation when present will allow each and every child to function and heal at 100% of their best. It just so happens that many of the children who enter your office, when they do enter, are not functioning at 100% of their best. So you can't guarantee that when we adjust a child, they're going to have better focus and better memory. But we know that the research supports that significant numbers of children will see significant numbers of results with chiropractic care. All right, guys. Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge. This was the Chiropractic Research Breakdown. Thanks for listening. Please share this with a colleague, a student who maybe is a bit skeptical about the principled chiropractic. Maybe they don't think that it's scientifically based. Maybe they're afraid to use words like adjustment. Maybe they're afraid to use words like subluxation because they're obsessed with the scientific component. And in many schools, I've had people reach out to me to say in many schools, we're taught to believe that the principled chiropractors like me and like you who are watching don't care about science. But the fact is, guys, that it's not just our research, it's all research out there points to that correcting subluxation impacts the quality of life regardless of condition. So I'll leave you with that today, guys. Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge. I love you. Go slay some subluxations.